Somebody recently posted a decoration they'd made similar to this one here on the left in our Facebook group, and she'd made it using a rubber stamp and a die set following a video that was on YouTube, and she posted a link to the video. Now the video to this decoration is over 2 years old. I don't own the rubber stamp or the die set, but I thought it would be easy to recreate something similar using canvas. So the one you see here on the right is my interpretation made using pattern paper and shapes that I welded together in canvas. Now on the one on the left they used tulle, which is this kind of purpley stuff here. When I was originally cutting mine, I had some brown tulle, and that's why I picked these kind of vintage patterned papers. But once I'd cut the papers out, I couldn't find the tulle, you know, which I suppose I'm sure you can all relate to. So I had to come up with another idea, and while I was looking for the tulle, I came across some paper doilies that I've had for a long time. They're just the small ones. They're about, I don't know, maybe 3.5 inches diameter, something like that. So basically, I cut a couple of them in half and fan folded them, and instead of putting the tulle in as is shown in the video, and the link to the video will be in the description box below my video here, so that if you want to follow this you'll know how to assemble it, I stuck my pieces of doily in. So I'm going to go into canvas and I'm going to show you how I created my shape. So first of all I went into the basic shapes and I chose a heart. Then I chose a square, and I actually chose another square and I used the editing points and manipulated the shape, but I'll show you what I mean in a minute. But there's actually a shape here that will do equally as good. So I'm going to shrink the heart down to about 2 inches high. So I'm just going to use the properties box, and as long as the maintain aspect ratio is ticked, it will sort the width out as well. I'm going to do the same with the square, take that down. I'm going to take this down to about 1 inch. It'll probably still be too big, but we'll see. That might not be too bad actually. So I'm going to put that over there, and then this one I'm going to take down. I'm going to hold the shift key down. I'm just going to do this by eye, because I want it so it slightly overlaps the box, the square shape on either side. And I think that kind of looks about right. So I'm going to select everything, go to Edit, Align, Center. So they should all now be centered. I'm going to weld and see what it looks like, and if I'm not happy with it, I can unweld it. So that's actually okay, that'll do, that's fine. So while I'm going to left click to select it, I'm going to right click and hit duplicate and put the duplicate down here out of the way for now. I'm going to come back to this top one, make sure it's selected, come to the properties box and hit cut line and just leave it at that. Then I'm going to come up here to the path icon. I'm going to left click somewhere just inside the top of this shape and hold my shift key down, and that will drag a straight line out, and click somewhere just before the bottom of the design, and it's a double click to anchor it. It doesn't matter that it's not centered, I just want it to be within the top line and the bottom point. While that's still selected, I'm going to come to the properties box. I'm going to change it to a cut line, but I'm going to also change it to a dash line, and I'm choosing the first option of the dashed set of 3. Okay, and close that down. So you can now see this is a dash and this is a black line, which is a cut. I'm going to drag an imaginary box around both, go to Edit, Align, Center, and edit, align, middle, just to make sure it puts it right in the middle of there. While they're both still selected, I'm going to right click and hit group, and that's now made me a shape that's a group. I'm going to take the size down now to 2 inches. And again, while the maintain aspect ratio is selected, it will alter the width in proportion. And then while I remember, I'm going to do the same on this one. So take this down to 2. So they're both the same size. I'm just going to keep that one down there out of the way for now. So what I'm going to do with this one, you can make these any size, but the decoration that I made that I've just shown you, this was the size I used for each of these sets of petals or whatever you want to call them. So while this is selected, I'm going to right click and hit duplicate and drag that one next to it. Then duplicate again and again. I want 5 and again. Okay. I'm going to drag an imaginary box around all 5, edit, align, bottom. While they're all still selected, right click and group, because what you need for this design is 15 of these with the score line in and 5 of these without. So I've got a set of 5 now. I can right click and hit duplicate, right click and hit duplicate. So there's my set of 15. And then this one I need 5 of. So right click, duplicate, duplicate, right click and hit duplicate, right click and hit duplicate. Drag an imaginary box around them all, edit, align, bottom. Okay, so they're the first part of the design. Now, the way I've done mine is I've saved them on individual mats, because my thinking is that you may want to cut these in alternative colours like I did. So my bottom layer was the vintage kind of brown and teal pattern. So that was all these. And then the next layer, the smaller shapes, were in a different coloured pattern paper. You could cut them all in the same and you could try and squeeze them all onto a 12 by 12 sheet, but this is how I did mine, so I'm just showing you. So over here, I'm going to come and I'm going to give it a name. Now I've already got mine saved in exactly the same size and I don't want to overwrite it. So I'm just going to give it a slightly different name. So I'm going to call it Decoration Part 1 and save it. And click OK. Then I'm going to go back to my projects, call up that design again because I want to see these are mine here. I've got decoration part 1, part 2 and part 3. Here's the one I've just made. So I'm going to open this again. I'm going to get rid of all these and hit delete. Get rid of all these and hit delete and keep one that's not got the, in fact no, I'm going to back up a bit. I'm going to delete that, ungroup that, right click and ungroup, get rid of 3 and delete, so I've got 1. These are all separate, get rid of those, so I've got 1. And then what I'm going to do, this one we know has already got the cut and the dash line. I'm going to come to the properties box, make sure aspect ratio is ticked, and I'm going to take this down. Now I can't remember whether I did mine at 1.5 or 1.75. I think it was 1.5. So that's 1.5. As long as this is ticked, that's going to be the same. Close that down and do the same on this one, 1.5. And then I'm going to repeat the process. So right click, duplicate, 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 duplicate. So I've got 5. Drag an imaginary box round, edit, align, bottom. While they're all selected, right click and group, right click, duplicate, right click, duplicate. So there's my 15. Select this one, right click, duplicate, and again, you get the picture. select everything, edit, align, bottom. You can group them if you want, it's up to you. You may be short on paper. If you group them, you can't ungroup them in Canvas, on your machine. So you may want to leave them ungrouped, and then if you're only using a small piece of paper, you can jiggle them around to make them fit. So this time here, I'm going to just backspace against the number 1 and type in number 2. And because I've changed the name here, this time when I hit save, it's going to say to me, do you want to overwrite this project or save as another project? I want to save as another project because it's a separate mat. Then if I go back to my projects, you'll see what I mean. So there's decoration part 1 and there's decoration part 2. And then the third part of this is to make the accordion fold. So I'm going to come back to new document this time and show you how I created the accordion fold. Now it's a bit fiddly, it would be easier to do this in Inkscape, but because I want to try and do the whole tutorial in Canvas, I'm going to show you how I did it here. Now first of all, you want to try and zoom in as much as you can to try and get the ruler at the top. Right, so the way that I did this, I'm going to zoom in a bit more, I think, because we need to be able to see it better. The way I created the accordion fold basically was to come over here to the path tool, and then on your ruler here you can see you've got like 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 and 1 inch. So I used the markings on my mat as a guide for what I wanted. So I've got, select the path tool, I'm going to click once on the 1/4 inch mark here, just on the white section directly under the mark, hold my shift key down and drag a straight line down. And it doesn't matter how long it is at this moment because we're going to size it in a minute. So just double click to anchor it. And that automatically selects it. So I'm going to come to the properties box, and the first thing I'm going to do before I do anything is make sure it's a dash line. So I'm going to hit cut line and then come down here and choose this first option so it's a dash line. Now I'm going to untick maintain aspect ratio, and I want it to be 1 inch high. So I'm going to take this up to 1 inch and then close that down. And that's now given me a 1 inch high dash line on that 1/4 inch mark of the ruler. While it's selected, I'm going to right click and hit duplicate. And you have to, it's a bit difficult I found with the dash line, but you have to hover over it till you get the 4 ended arrows. And then you want to position this next one under the 1/2 inch mark. While that's selected, duplicate, then come to the 3/4 mark, and then again right click and duplicate and bring that one to the inch mark. Now you can see they're not all exactly lined up, so I'm going to drag an imaginary box around all of the 4, go to edit, align, top, and that will line them all up on the top edges. And while they're all selected, I'm going to right click and hit group. Then I'm going to right click and hit duplicate, and I'm going to move that duplicate set along so that this right hand last dash line lines up under the number 2. And if I try and zoom in a little bit more, I'm going for this dash line here that's holding the 4 together to be along this white section here, directly underneath the markings. You can use the arrows on your keyboard to make sure they're positioned. Okay, while that's selected, right click, duplicate, and do the same thing, move along. And keep positioning them all along the arrows, all along the ruler, until you get to 10 inches. Now, the more accurate you are here doing this, the more accurate your folds will be when you come to make your flower. But to be honest with you, it's handmade, isn't it? So, you know, like the lady said in the video, you know, it doesn't matter if it's got a few mistakes here and there. Keep duplicating this last one. As I say, this would be a lot easier to do in Inkscape, but I'm trying to do the whole video in Canvas. So this is how I did mine. Now you may have a better and quicker way of doing this. I could group a couple of sections together and then duplicate, but I just want to show you what I'm doing. So I've got to 10 inches. Now I'm going to select this last group, right click and ungroup it. And this last one on the 10 I'm going to delete, because you don't want one on the 10 and you don't want one right at the beginning here on the 0. So I'm going to zoom back out now just so that you can hopefully see the whole mat. I'm going to start way up here, left click so I know I get everything. Drag an imaginary box around everything. Edit, align, top. So all the top edges align, and while they're all selected, right click and hit group, and then I'm just going to try and make it a little bit bigger so you can see it all. In fact, I might need to zoom out a bit more. Oops, a bit too much. And as I said, I don't find the dash lines easy to pick up. Now I'm going to come to the basic shapes, choose a square, come to my properties box. I want this to be 1 inch high. I'm making sure maintain aspect ratio is unticked, and here I want this to be 10. I'm going to have to zoom out a bit more. So now I've got a 1 by 10 inch rectangle and I've got all my dash lines. While this one's selected, I'm going to right click and hit duplicate and bring that down. I'm going to select this, right click and hit duplicate and bring that down, because I'm going to use that separately in a few minutes. I'm going to put these two together, drag an imaginary box around them both, go to edit, align, center and middle, and they all now line up. And you can see we've just got a solid line at this end, and the first dash line starts on the 1/4 inch, and we've got a solid line here, and that's what we want. Go back to the full view of my map. Sorry, it's jumping about all over the place. Select both, right click and hit group. So that's one. Now these two, I'm going to make this one 1/2 inch high. I'm going to leave it unticked, leave it at 10 inches and make this 1/2 inch high. And then I'm going to select this one and do the same. Make sure maintain aspect ratios unticked. This one will be smaller in width because the dash lines don't touch the 10 or the 0, if you remember. So just want to make them 1/2 inch high. Select both, edit, align, center and middle, and while they're both selected, right click and hit group. So that's those, and then the only other things you need are a couple of circles. So you need I think I cut my circles for the flowers to be mounted on at 2 inches. So I'm going to tick maintain aspect ratio, type 2 in there. That will make everything 2 inches. I'm going to duplicate that. And then you need a couple of circles to put these accordions on. So I'm going to right click and hit duplicate. For the bigger one, I'm going to make this one 1 inch. And for the smaller one, I'm going to duplicate that and I'm going to make that 1/2 inch. So those 2 circles go with those, and these 2 circles are used to put your petals on in your other part. So I'm going to call this decoration part 3 and save it. Then if I go back to my projects, you'll see I've got the 3 sections that make this flower. So there they are, decoration part 3, decoration part 2, decoration part 1, and these are my other ones that I made to make the decoration I showed you at the beginning. So if you follow this tutorial, cut everything out, and then follow the YouTube link, which will be in the comment box below my YouTube video, to the other video, it will show you how to assemble this decoration. So I hope you found that helpful. Please like, share and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next video. Thank you.